Hello dear viewers, once again it is time for the news here on Rwanda Television with me, Serge Hori. We'll begin with the headlines. The World Bank has confirmed that Rwanda's economy grew by as much as 8.4% in the first 3 quarters of 2022, leaving no doubt that the country's GDP in that entire year increased by at least 8%. The Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan has begun a 3-day working visit here in Rwanda. An organization dedicated to fighting justice for those that have been affected by the atrocities being committed in North and South Kivu as well as Ituri of the DRC has organized a presentation in New York on the findings of investigations carried out on the situation in those 3 regions. Thank you for joining us now. Our top story. According to the World Bank, despite a challenging global environment, Rwanda's economy grew by 8.4% in the first 3 quarters of 2022. However, the increase in commodity prices has been highlighted as one of the factors that have hindered the economy from growing further. Olive Nete has more on that.
According to the 20th edition of the Rwanda Economic Update that was published by the World Bank on Tuesday, Rwanda's economy grew by 8% in 2022, despite various challenges such as the pandemic of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. This report shows that 6 consecutive quarters, starting from the second quarter of 2021, the productivity of the service sector increased by 10%, while the first 3 quarters of 2022, this sector increased by 13.1%, and it accounts for 70% of the country's gross domestic product. Roland Price, the country manager of the World Bank, points out that Rwanda's economic growth depends mainly on the recovery and development of the service sector.
Despite a challenging global environment, Rwanda has showed resilience, growing at 8% in 2022, supported mainly by the services sector. This growth was accompanied by improvement in the labor market. The last Rwanda Economic Update, we spoke a little bit about the fact that employment was very slow to pick up, and we have seen a change in this report. Among the challenges that Rwanda faced, inflation was most prominent, having reached historic highs in 2022, and this was driven mostly by food prices, both imported and local. Rising food prices have particularly affected lower income households who devote a larger share of their expenditures to food and appear to face higher rates of food price increases compared to higher income households. The government of Rwanda has not been still. It has adopted a number of measures to mitigate the impact of inflation during 2022, including increasing fuel subsidies, increasing spending on social protection programs, and increasing the subsidies on fertilizers and seeds. However, the bank puts forward that further measures are needed to protect the poorest and most vulnerable.
According to Peace Niyibizieme, an economist at the World Bank, although various factors hindered the economic growth, food prices ranked first in hindering this growth.
When you look at the data available, we realize that mostly, though other factors contributed, but the most contributing factor is about food prices, mostly domestic one. Why? Because maybe in our consumer basket, the share of inflation of the food is high. I would say that in the rural area, it's about it's more than 40%. While in the urban area is about 27%. You would understand anything touching food prices will always have an impact on higher inflation.
The World Bank recommends strengthening the provision of nature-based tourism, which accounts 80% of foreign exchange earnings from tourism, as a factor that could make a substantial contribution to growth. The Minister of Environment, Dr. Mujamalia Jeanne d'Arc, points out that investment in this sector must go hand in hand with measures to preserve the environment.
We need to find ways to strengthen gorilla tourism without negatively impacting these majestic animals of their habitat. We need to ensure our natural assets are well protected and prevent the risk of infectious disease. We also need to ensure communities are always at the heart of our conservation effort. To address these challenges and unlock new opportunities, the government has recently introduced a new biodiversity law that promotes the wildlife economy. This law provides an excellent opportunity for the private sector to take advantage of Rwanda's natural assets while protecting them for future generations.
The World Bank also points out that in 2021, Rwanda's economy grew by 10.9% from minus 3.4% in 2020. Olive Nete, RTV News.
A plenary session has taken place in the Chamber of Deputies in Parliament to ask the Minister of Infrastructure regarding losses incurred by residents who rely on technology to get construction permits. With the details is Precious Chirezi.
The chairperson of the Parliament Committee on Land, Agriculture, Livestock and Environment is of the view that integrating technology into the service business has done more harm than good, emphasizing that on top of the delay in service provision, the new adjustment has caused financial loss to the government and citizens alike. When will the technical glitches be fixed? How far with the payment of areas? Have you refunded local residents for exceeding stipulated land? The Ministry of Infrastructure pointed out that the BPMIS software is complementary to those of Irembo, the National Land Agency, Tax and Customs, as well as other institutions relevant where construction documentation is concerned. However, some local residents claim they haven't been authorized. Not accessing the system makes it hard to serve residents, despite the fact that the multiple Irembo agents are there to provide instant services. Certain lawmakers pointed out that concerned institutions did not adequately package the software and asked the Ministry of Infrastructure to correct the systematic errors concerning it. Dismantling buildings would occur when constructing on another's land, and this is caused by corrupt operatives who change the system to favor the financer of their bribes. Why did they notice systematic discrepancies before deconstructing residential properties? In response to this, the Minister of Infrastructure pointed out that some of these problems have been resolved and the website is always being updated and enhanced.
We have the system and it is stored in the country and used by residents. The data that is stored in the system is secured. What remains is that we shall keep on improving the system and continue to use it more so that people would find it easy to use it.
Accessibility to e-services is one of the concerns that were brought up, and issues like issuing the same number to different cases and local residents having to pay for web malfunctions were addressed. The BPMIS website issues 500 to 700 documents monthly on behalf of the city of Kigali, and reports have demonstrated that technical malfunctions have caused residents to wait 2 months to 5 years for a building permit that should be received within 30 days of a documented petition. Precious Chidezi, RTV News.
Ayman Safadi, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Kingdom of Jordan, has begun a 3-day working visit here in Rwanda. Upon arrival, he was received at the Kigali International Airport by the Rwandan Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Vincent Biruta. The Jordanian Deputy Prime Minister visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial at Gisozi, where he paid tribute to the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
That shows the evil, the inhumanity that hatred, discrimination and ignorance can produce. This memorial stands as a remembrance of those who fell and the hatred that produced it, but it also stands in the Rwanda of today, which shows what peace, truth, reconciliation, justice and respect of the other and acceptance of the other, acceptance and respect that we're all one produces in terms of the progress and development that this country is showing. This is a reminder to the whole world that nothing but evil comes of hatred, and Rwanda as of today is also a proof to the world that all the good could always come from reconciliation, respect and love. Thank you.
Staying on the issue of hatred and atrocities, an organization dedicated to fighting for justice for those that have been affected by the atrocities being committed in North and South Kivu as well as Ituri of the DRC has organized a presentation in New York on the findings of investigations carried out on the situation in those three regions.
This is part of efforts to strive for justice for those we represent, and advocacy on their behalf, like I said. We organized this meeting here in New York in order to tell the world, through the many UN diplomats based here, especially those who do not understand what is happening there, to present to them our findings from North and South Kivu, as well as what we have found so far in Ituri. We want justice to be served to those committing those atrocities. We want the voice of their victims to be heard. As per the investigations that we carried out, we used lawyers in North and South Kivu who spoke to survivors of the atrocities at places like Masisi, and we collected evidence of what was done through those testimonies, as well as physical evidence in the form of torched houses, slaughtered animals, and people who fled to camps. That is the evidence we are presenting to both courts in the DRC and the international courts so that the people we represent can get justice. What is clear is that people identified as the Tutsi in both Kivus and Ituri are being targeted for systematic killings. Sometimes they call them Rwandans, and I mean the Banyamulenge and the Hima of Ituri. They label them as such in order to exterminate them, and that is what we want the world to recognize. It is a serious problem, and we want the Congolese government to acknowledge that and not conflate it with the other political problems that could be in that country. Every Congolese deserves justice, and the killing must stop.
Truly unfortunate. Now, back here in Rwanda, elders have been urging young people to preserve the Kinyarwanda language by speaking it fluently without mixing it with other languages. This as the country celebrates the International Mother Language Day. Prince Manzi has more.
In celebrating this day, there was an inauguration of the exhibition on the Kinyarwanda history, an exhibition on the involvement of the Kinyarwanda language from time to time. Before the writing era, the Kinyarwanda language was well preserved in terms of poems, songs, and others. At the beginning, writing was not easy, as we demonstrated, but as time passed, regulations were placed for properly writing. In Kiruri, a place known to be home to poets, where this International Day was celebrated at, elders urged the youth to participate in poems, as it is one of the ways of preserving their mother language. I urge the young ones to follow the steps of their poetic elders.
We used to be taught, especially in the first year, and be beaten up for memorizing the poem. Some would memorize and others won't. The youth have to learn Kinyarwanda because this is our culture. It should be preserved.
The Minister of Youth and Culture, Rosemary Mbabazi, states that the measurements are in place to favor the preservation of Kinyarwanda, but urges the youth to make this preservation theirs.
Learning other languages is good, but the essential is to know who you are and your language defines you. They should be proud of it, and it is theirs to preserve it. Because if it's not them, who else? The message to the youth today, the Kinyarwanda language is ours, our heritage. They should preserve it.
Kinyarwanda is spoken in different parts in the Great Lakes region by at least 40 million people. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
The plenary session of the Chamber of Deputies in the Rwandan Parliament has approved a report on the analysis of the reports of the 2021-2022 activities of the National Public Service Commission and projected 2022-2023 activities and analyzed how the Commission fulfilled its responsibilities, as well as addressing challenges. Prince Manzi continues.
It is an analysis conducted by the Senate Committee on the report on the activities of the National Public Service Commission in order to see if this commission has fulfilled its responsibilities in year 2021-2022. The challenges found in this report include the role of public entities in generating losses for the government due to not implementing laws governing employees, and that some employees are hired without qualifications. Honorable Emmanuel Havugimana states that it is not understandable how one is hired yet not qualified. What amazes me is how people are hired and yet not qualified.
I
do not understand. In the report, the president of the commission said that in the 3 districts, there are 155 unqualified teachers. How do you place someone to teach without qualifications? The chairperson of the Committee on Social Affairs and Human Rights in the Senate Chamber, Honorable Adriu Muhire, states that public entities are to position the succeeded candidates on time for this problem to be solved.
Public entities must put candidates who succeeded in position on time, as stipulated by the presidential decree. Another factor is that even though we took a decision on evolving the system of hiring public employees online, it is still a challenge.
The Senate Chamber also demonstrates that there should be pieces of training for the hired in public entities for understanding more in their work. It requests heads of public entities to align with the laws governing public work in order to prevent losses on the government, and requests that the hiring process should be fair.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources has announced that the number of mushroom producers in the country is to double to more than 70,000. The ministry and the Chinese government today presented technology that will help to grow mushrooms by using grass. Jessica Gassara with more.
Mushroom farmers around the country say that farming with the help of this Jinkao technology has helped them increase their production and get out of poverty. Mushroom are food, mushroom are medicine, mushroom is business. You understand that when you have a good meal, you're already good. And when you can distribute it to others and gain some money, it's also good. When you have mushroom, your kids can never have malnutrition issues.
Mushrooms are very important for me. They took me out of poverty and helped me avoid malnutrition in my home and my neighbors. Apart from that, it has given me a job. I didn't have a job before. So personally, mushrooms are important for me because I get a salary between 200 and 250,000 a month.
This technology of Jinkao that helps mushroom farmers to grow using grass has made some countries like Tanzania, Zimbabwe, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Nigeria come to Rwanda to learn about this agriculture. André Bomana is one of the mushroom farmers who came straight from the DRC.
Nous sommes venus voir comment la République du Rwanda est en train de produire des champignons.
We came to see how Rwanda started to grow and produce mushrooms, and other experiences and the machines they use and have. We want our country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, to start using this technology and the administration to put effort into it. This will change a lot.
Chinese ambassador to Rwanda, Wang Shekun, said that they introduced the technology to grow mushroom with the help of grass in order to increase their production and help the people to be satisfied with food rich in nutrition.
The demonstration center has done a lot of job to improve the production and training programs. And we would like to see more business to provide the food debt and some income for the peasants. And we will see the income generation very soon.
Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, Dr. Olivier Kamana, said that in Rwanda, mushroom production is still low, and the goal is to increase the number of farmers.
So this technology is an innovative one that brings in the concept of using a small portion of land, and also it's environmental friendly and it is user friendly. It is really easy to use, and this offers an opportunity for our villages to adopt it. It is easy to adopt, and we hope that in the near future this is going to contribute to the increase of mushroom production in Rwanda.
Apart from the cooperation that Rwanda has with China in agriculture, it also includes building infrastructure, education, and improving healthcare. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
That report brings us to the end of this edition of the news. On behalf of the rest of the team that made it possible, thank you for joining us and goodbye.